Hey friends, it's Jill Gase here with your astrological forecast for the week. Whew, this is a big one. I'm really going to attempt to break this one down because we have actually a lot going on next week. First of all, we have a full moon, lunar eclipse, and then we end next week with the fall equinox. So we have a lot of energy circulating, and I'm going to attempt to kind of break it down into kind of more digestible chunks so that we can assimilate this and truly understand what really is at play for us this week. So let's see how well I can do this. All right, let's start with talking about the season that we're in. We're in the Virgo solar cycle. So as we've been talking these last few weeks, we're in the archetype of Virgo in refinement, right? We've been talking about digestion, like we're looking around our life and we're saying, are the things that I'm putting in, am I getting the nourishment from this? Like, is this working for me? And if it's not, this has been a season of refining. It's a season to get back to work, to kind of really put some effort and make some shifts and changes. It's like cleaning out the closets of our life. And so the core question is really like, how do I be better? How can I be better in my life? How do I show up in a more enhanced version? Because when I do that, I know that everything around me can be enhanced too. So Virgo has this aim to improve, to be the best it can be, so that it can be of service. So that's the bigger theme that's going on in the solar cycle. All right. Well, now we jump to the opposite sign, which is Pisces, and these two are polarized, so they have opposite views. And so when we talk about a Pisces full moon, we talk about the exhale. We talk about surrender. We talk about compassion for ourselves, for each other. It's really where the work ends and we allow. And so with Pisces, it's not so much about improving, it's about kind of realizing the oneness of nature, the oneness that it finds beauty in the messiness, the oneness that allows us to know our value without having to do one single thing. Like, it's like we start out remembering who we are. And so if you feel these two energies, they're quite contrasting, right? We have the effort, the making improvement, and then we have the exhale, and we have the realization of us on a deeper soulful level. And you might say, how in the world do those two mix? Well, just like relationships, they need each other. And so let's talk a little bit about the shadow aspects of both and how they come into harmony together. So when we talk about Virgo's shadow, we talk about the constant hustle, the never good enough. The analogy, I think, is if we keep raising the bar, the bar just keeps going up and up, like we never get there. I don't know about you, but I remember thinking many times as I went through therapy that, oh my gosh, like the deeper I go, the more I find. It's like an endless pool of things in which I'm like, oh, and then there's this, and then there's this. Just like organizing and just like improving anything in your life. The more and more you do it, the more and more you find. And so there can be this never acceptance of it, or never feeling good enough, or wanting to get things perfect, so much so that you miss maybe the inherent value of what is, that you just never really stop the doing to realize the being. And so with Virgo, we have that kind of that incessant improving. With Pisces, we have another shadow side, and that's the rose-colored glasses. So at times when we're in a Pisces shadow, we just see what we want to see. We see the best in everything and we don't see the truth. We can also, in some ways, have this idealized state of how we want things to be and never take one step towards it. Like we have our dreams and we're like, oh, it'd be great if it was this and that. And, oh, I know that I have all this potential and I'm just going to do the same thing I've always done, right? So there can be unrealized potential with Pisces. There can be a sense of delusion or a not wanting to see reality in a true sense. Or, I look to it in relationship as oftentimes I've seen myself seeing the best in people and not seeing but how they're actually showing up. So yeah, this person might have the potential to be this amazing lover and all these things, but how are they showing up now? And so that can be the Pisces shadow. But these two need each other. Just as much as Virgo needs Pisces, Pisces needs Virgo. And as these two are having this interplay, there's insights for both, for us to heal and to integrate and to come into deeper understanding about both of what these signs offer. And so we need both for balance. And on this full moon eclipse, there is something for us to realize. So let's talk a little bit more about what an eclipse is. So these eclipses are happening, and this is our lunar eclipse that will happen on Tuesday the 17th. And then we'll have in 2 weeks the solar eclipse that will happen. And so when we have an eclipse at all, so in this eclipse portal, as I'll call it, things accelerate. Things that would have maybe been hidden before become realized. So like maybe things bubble to the surface that you never had thought of before, or an insight or a realization. Sometimes big things just shift out of our life. So things will blow up and then they're over, or we have a big insight or something comes in. Shifts just accelerate growth or shifting and changing. But remember, it's always in ways that are enhancing us, are moving us towards what it is that we are truly looking for in our life and opening towards. So even if you have big shifts and changes, it's just remember, it's always for you. It's never happening to you. These are all things that collectively and individually we're calling in. So a portal time or an eclipse time, I like to think of it like as a portal with it, which it's easier to step into this shift and change and growth. And it becomes more palpable and more realized, and maybe the way forward just becomes a lot simpler. So we're in eclipse time. We have a full moon. And I think this full moon, when we kind of alchemize the energy, because let me back up for a moment. So anytime we're at an eclipse, we're at the lunar node of the moon, which means that this is an interplay between where we're trying to collectively evolve. So there's karma in a sense, or there's maybe more of the shadow sides of whatever astrological sign the south node is coming up for growth and evolution. And then we have kind of an invitation to the north node, which is a place in which we're learning how to be in a new place of understanding in our life. So look at this as if, you know, your south node is the known familiar. You're like, yeah, know this. And just like in our past, there's always things we're like, oh, I learned from that. And then I'm here. And look at your north node as being like the new frontier, the place in which I'm discovering these new things about myself and my life. And so this full moon is occurring at the lunar north node. And so that's in Aries. So because we have the Aries Libra axis that we've been going through, and this is like a year and a half that we've been dealing with relationship things are coming up for us to evolve, because whatever we're experiencing within relationship helps us grow. But it also helps the person grow, because we grow together. Just like I was saying, Pisces and Virgo need each other. We need each other to grow, because if we're on a desert island by ourselves, all we'll ever see is what we want to see, what we're able to see. But the beauty of relationships is that they reflect back to us things that we can't see on our own. So this last 18 months, or close to 18 months, we've been having relationship things surface. Some people will experience this more intensely, maybe because you're a cardinal sign, or this is happening with planets that are near the Aries and Libra axis. Doesn't matter. You know if relationship things are happening, because you'll have relationship issues. You'll have things that bother you. And so relationships are in the spotlight. And so when we combine the energies of the full moon in Pisces, the Virgo solar cycle, we also have some other energy in Pisces. We have Saturn in Pisces and we have Neptune in Pisces, all swimming around this north node in full moon. So there's a lot of energy there. And if you remember what I was saying about each, I'm just going to kind of alchemize it in the way I'm experiencing that. And I'm experiencing that as Saturn being in a sense, because again, it's in Pisces, is the collective understanding of who we are and what we can be and what's our possibilities and potential. And anything collective like that is usually outdated and not super in turn with the spiritual, the soul level oneness, which Neptune is kind of bringing to the table. So if I were to kind of look at this full moon eclipse, I think the invitation is, like, if you were to remember yourself as soul, as part of the whole, as anything is possible because you are stardust, what are you being invited to act towards? Because remember, Aries is a sign of courage. Aries is a sign of decisive action, and it's really aimed at whatever the self wants and desires. Aries is not a very conscious sign of wanting to weigh it with other people, talk it over, how does this benefit you and me? Aries is like ready, fire, aim. So we have this decisiveness, this courage, this willingness to want to act and create, along with Pisces, which is that kind of understanding of who we are in a soul level, who we are as part of the collective, who we are as stardust. So I think that invitation is really, how do we act from the soul level? How do we really act from that knowing of who we truly are and who we want to be? So I think that's kind of the invitation of this full moon, is that soul level knowing. But there's two sides of the coin, remember, because we have the sun in Virgo, and that's really close to the south node, which is all about Libra. And you're like, hey, wait a second, aren't we talking about relationships? Yeah. And so what might be highlighting in your relationships is, where do we need others to act in a certain way so that we can be in that soul level or that potential? Like, where do we think others are blocking us, are preventing us, or where are we needing them to be and act differently in order for us to be able to step into our potential and to what we truly want? And so if I think about this, I like to say that relationships are like mirrors. So in that way, in some ways they're personal, but they're not personal. So if you look at if you take a moment to look at like a snapshot in time of all your relationships, and you look at, if I weren't to personalize this and say that this person is doing this to me or acting in this way, and it's this whole personal intertwinement of energies, but what is the dominant feelings I'm get, or what's the dominant kind of the situation that I'm sensing? It's mirroring something within you. And so what we might want to explore, and some good questions that you might want to be asking yourself with this is, where do we diminish ourselves because of others? Like, where is it that you have that boss that just never recognizes you, and you're like, I need recognition. I need you to tell me that I'm doing a good job. Like, where is it that we're in some ways allowing that person to diminish who we know that we are? Where are we trying to control people to get outcomes that we want? Like, where do we need a person to do or not do a certain thing so that we permission ourselves to do what we want to do? Or where are we seeking external validation? So these are all invitations for us to reclaim that knowing of who we are, and that we are unlimited, and that really no one can keep us from these things. But these things are invitations for us to learn more skillful ways of navigating relationships and life. So I think that kind of the elixir for this time is, remember the menu option, like, I don't know if it's in Word or Excel, but it's find and replace. I think these relationships are highlighting places in which, if you're feeling imbalanced or disempowered, or that things aren't right, or that it's unfair, this is a place to say, find those places, life, show these places to me. And for me to step back for a moment and go within and to ask, what's the truer truth here? Where do I replace this with the knowing that I am unlimited, that I am creator, that I do have choice in every relationship as to how I want to show up and what I can and can't do? Now, we can't control others, but we can control ourselves. We can control what we choose. And this is the perfect opportunity to truly do that. So it's an ability to really find those triggers, to replace them with that. And then once we can remember that, and then sometimes the other options become available for how we really want to choose. So example, in that boss example where you're like, oh my gosh, doesn't matter what I do, I don't get recognized. It's like, where do I just surrender that and decide that I choose how I act, and I act in these ways because this is who I am and who I want to be. And I don't need anyone to recognize that, because I recognize that this is me doing me. In that relationship where maybe you feel like your partner isn't pulling their fair shake, like, where do I need to pull back my expectations and needing them to be a certain way? And where do I either go to a different source, or whether I just relax expectations and allow that person to be who they are, and to recognize maybe this isn't a good fit for me. Maybe this isn't a relationship that will allow me to give and receive what I need. And if I'm with a group of people that maybe keep shooting down my big idea and tell me how it won't work, where do I go to a different source? Maybe my soul, maybe my heart, for that acknowledgement of what I desire, with that validation that this feels good and true, and I'm going to trust that. So this is just an opportunity to kind of go back within and kind of right the limiting belief that might be at service to kind of disempowering you. So find and replace on the equinox. Look at all those relational imbalances and start to see where, again, how would you act if you remembered who you were at a soul level? Okay, so taking that a step further, on Sunday we have the fall equinox. So this is a day of equal light and dark. And I love how nature is literally the most wise teacher ever, because within nature, we realize that in the summer, right, the days are longer, the light is stronger, the temperatures are warmer, and it seems imbalanced. But then we flip, and then we have fall, where the days are shorter, where the light is not as prominent and the temperatures are cooler. Nature is always moving us towards balance and harmony. And sometimes balance looks a certain way, and then sometimes it looks another way. But that inherently life is balanced. Life is fair, even if we don't experience it in the moment. There's like this universal truth, and then there's the relative truth, right? Of like, this situation may not feel very fair, but in reality, like, nature is showing us that. So this is a good time to be introspective about where may you feel a little imbalanced in life. So like for me, it's things like, where am I over giving and maybe need to step back a little bit and receive and be open to receiving? Or where am I so intent on what I'm getting that I'm failing to see what I can offer people in life, and really stepping into my place of giving. So it's just a place to really sit back into that balance and feel where in your life are you feeling imbalanced. And the sun comes out. And to see where there might be a new perspective to take within that, to acknowledge the cycles of life, that there are cycles in which we are giving, and then there's cycles in which we need to receive. There are cycles in which we are active and cycles in which we need to rest. And so life is always inviting us towards that. Okay, so I want to summarize by letting you know that to really take this lens of relationships being personal, but yet also very impersonal, in the sense that they're mirrors, and we need people to grow. And that although at times it can feel very challenging in relationships, they're always pointing us back to our source of power and our source of truth and our true point of decision. And I'm not negating the need to have conversation with people and to work it out and negotiate, but that always results in greater results when we are in a place of better harmony and resourced within. Anytime we're coming from a place of, it's not fair, you've done this to me, the negotiation never goes very well. The conversation never goes really well. So I want to leave you with a quote. I'm rephrasing the quote, but it's basically, I am another you. What I see in you, I see and know in me. And so anything we're seeing in another, anything that's grindy and just annoying and hurtful, there's something there for us. And if we can use this eclipse, we can use this equinox to really find a new perspective, to be able to act from a place of embodiment of who we are. I think this is going to accelerate us into a whole new place of enrichment in our lives. Thanks for listening, friends. I know this was a longer one. If this was helpful for you, like the video, share this so that we all can be learning how to be greater allies to each other in relationship and in relationship to life. Blessings.